and welcome to Lauren Reed Color. Thanks very much for joining me for today's video. I've recently had a couple of requests asking that I show how I color the flowery full bushes, moss and trees on some of my coloring pages. So in this video, I'm going to show you some examples. I'm going to go over the tools that I use and demonstrate the technique. I hope that you find it helpful. Let's begin. To begin with, a couple of example pages. While I was going through my coloring books, I realized that most of them are in mythographic books by Joseph Katzenbang, but it can be used on any coloring page. It does not have to be in mythographic. Anyway, so the first example is on this page where I did the moss. Okay, so here you can see it is this yellowy moss color. Another example is on this page. Here it is the pink moss and the pink trees. So you can see it can be any color. It does not have to be green. And here it's the moss on this vine. So over here, and is there anywhere else? I think over there. Yes, so those two. They're really small elements most of the time. So sometimes it stands out and sometimes it doesn't. Another example is in Mythographic Wild Summer, also by Joseph Katzenbang, and it's my most recent example. It's this page with all of the fluffy, full, flowery bushes over here. This is with flowers, and you can also see it in the moss, but there it's without flowers. So you can put embellishments on top of this as well. All right, so that's that example. And in Mythographic Wild Winter, also by Joseph Katzenbang, it is on this page, the pandas, and it is these darker bushes. So you can have it light, you can have it dark, you can have it with flowers, you can have it without flowers, you can have it in numerous different colors. The technique is the same regardless of what you're doing. And one final example in a different book is in Enchanted Forest by Johanna Basford, and it is on this page, the trees. Okay, so it's these trees and these trees. So yeah, those are all of the pages that I have where I have used this technique. And now I'm going to go over the tools that are necessary for accomplishing this. Let's begin with the tools. So the first thing that you're going to need is colored pencils. Now, any brand of pencil will do. I will be demonstrating using Faber-Castell Polychromas, but you can use any pencils. It could be Prismacolors, Faber-Castell Polychromas, Castle Arts, Brut Funers, Spectrum Noir, Derwent, any pencils, it does not matter, but you do need 3 shades. So you need a light tone, a mid-tone, and a dark tone. And again, as I said earlier, it can be any color. It can be yellow, it can be pink, it can be blue. You decide whichever color you want for your bushes, moss, or trees. So yeah, that's pencils. Next, you're going to need some sort of acrylic marker in different colors. So the colors for the acrylic markers should match the colors of the pencils. So if you have greens, you should have greens. If you have pinks, you should have pinks, and so on. Now, I use 2 different kinds of markers. I use the Artristro brand. This is a brand where the nib is plastic. Hold on one second. The nib is plastic. This is the kind that you have to shake and prime by pumping so that the acrylic ink comes out. Now, you're going to see that my acrylic markers are a bit of a mess, but that's okay. You can also put this onto a palette, yes, and then pick it up with a palette. But I will show you different techniques and what I do depending on the condition of my marker. Or pen, and then I also have some Artex acrylic markers. These are the ones that have the brush tip. Okay, so it doesn't really matter as long as you have an acrylic marker of some kind with colors matching. And if you want to do flowers, then you also need the markers in the shades of the flowers. Okay, but I'm going to show you all of that when we get to practicing. Okay, you're also going to need Q-tips and perhaps a water brush. You can do this technique with a water brush, without a water brush, whatever floats your boat. Okay, so let me get down to showing you how it is actually achieved. Let's start with the technique. To begin with, I have just drawn some fluffy bushes into my notebook, and we're going to start by putting down the pencils first. Now, you can also put down a base layer of alcohol marker or even shade with alcohol markers if that is your preferred coloring method. I prefer colored pencils, and so we're going with colored pencils. So let me just get a protective sheet for my hand. So basically, I'm starting off with my lightest shade, which is May Green, and I'm very lightly just putting this down over everything. Okay, so let's just do that. Okay, now you want to keep your highlights and your shadows. If you want darker bushes, like in my panda page, then you can go darker. Okay. All right, my next color is the permanent green olive, and now I'm leaving my highlights at the top, and I'm using what the artist, because I've traced this from Joseph Kattenbang, what they have given us here to create shadows. Okay. All right, everything's going to be colored also on top with the markers, so keep that in mind. But you know, you can use the lines that the artist has given. Okay, circular motions to create some fluffy bushiness. Okay, and then my last shade is the pine green. It's my darkest shade, and this is going into my darkest areas. Okay. Now, it all depends on you and how you like your bushes to look. If you like them to be less fluffy, more fluffy. Okay, and then I'm going to go on top with the May Green again, just to blend. Okay, you can put quite a few layers. It's up to you. All right, so we already have sort of fluffy looking bushes. If you like this, you can leave it like this and then put your acrylic marker on top. Okay, so when I say leave it like this, you can leave it bushy like this and then take your markers and put in the flowers, okay? But I tend to also put acrylic marker on top of the pencil. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my acrylic marker. Now this one is a bit of a mess. I've used it a lot, all right? And I have to get it to flow. So shake and prime. So there we go, I've shaken it, and oh, actually it's actually behaving itself. All right, so what you're going to need now is your marker, as I said, and shake it and prime it and put the marker down on the page and then dab it with your Q-tip. Okay, you can dab, you can swirl, you can do whatever you like. All right, now keep in mind you want to keep your highlights and your shadows, so make sure to put the colors where they need to go. Also keep in mind that acrylic dries really quickly. All right, so if you want a smoother blend, you need to dab, yes, very quickly. If you want a more textured look, which I usually do with the darker color, then you let it dry for a couple of seconds and then dab. So let's take our next color, which is a slightly darker green. Let me just shake and prime. Hold on one second. I always test the flow on a piece of paper on the side because you don't want it just, you know, spilling out onto your page. Okay, so this I'm putting into the darker areas over here. Okay, just random. Now, if you want it to be a bit more textured, you wait a couple of seconds and then you dab. And as you can see, if you do that, then you see more of the dots. And the longer you let it dry, the more dots you will see. Okay, so say I want it over here. Okay, I can let it dry. And then I just dab it with the Q-tip. Okay. Now keep in mind, if you want to, you can also go on top again with the pencil to deepen up shadows. Okay, so for example, say I want my shadow areas to be a bit more deep, I can take the pencil and go on top, and it will deepen up my shadows. right, so there we go. Now you can put in flowers, okay? So say I want orange flowers or yellow flowers. Again, I'm taking my Artistro marker. Another brand that is similar to this is the Tule Arts, okay? I'm just going to shake and prime. Hold on one second. And now you can put in flowers, all right? So let's say I want flowers over there and over there. You could have lots of little flowers dotted all over. Okay, you can keep them in one color or you can make them in different colors. Okay, let's just make sure this, I know these ones flow because I use them all the time. Yeah, so, and then you've got flowers like that. So that's one way of doing it. Let's move on to a different way, which is very similar. Again, you just have your pencils. Okay, so again, I'm just going to put down my layer of May green. Right. Circular motions. Then I'm taking my permanent green olive in the shadow areas. It doesn't have to be perfect. Bushes in nature are not perfect, so they don't have to be perfect on your pages either. This is a fun technique. I enjoy it. Okay. Oh, we might want to, we're definitely going to be blending that out. And then my darkest shade, which is pine green. Okay, exactly the same as we did earlier. And then blending out again with the May green. I wanted to go a bit up. Oh, we should put some more pine green over here. Okay. All right. Okay, so for example, like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the other markers, okay? So these are the Artex. These ones do not need to be primed. You do sort of have to shake them a little bit. And then you just do exactly the same thing. Let me just get a clean Q-tip. Okay, you dab it wherever. All right, and again, you smush. These ones dry even more quickly than the other ones. So you got to go quick. And here you might not want to dab, you might want to actually, you know, make the dots a bit more close together and smush, depending on which markers you're using. Okay, but they more or less work in the same way. Okay. You might get a slightly different texture with these ones. Okay, I usually mix them all together. Okay, so there's that one. And for example, I mix because I don't have a really dark green here, so I'm taking the darker green from the Artistro set. All right, and then you can even put it on top of the Artex marker and dab. Okay, and that gives you the nicer shadow colors. Yeah, and see, they mix together, very nice. Okay. You can even have a lighter color. So for example, if you want to, second, you can even put some yellow at in the highlight area. Okay, and the colors blend together, so it creates a nice look. Okay, you can even go, this is pencil lines, but in the coloring book itself, you can go over the lines too. Here it mixes with the graphite, so I'm not sure it's gonna look so good. Okay, and you just play around with it until you get the look that you like. Okay, And once again, you can put in flowers. Now here, I might put in some other kinds of flowers, okay? So those are just dotted flowers, all right? It gives the impression of flowers, but you can actually have flowers. So let's say I put some yellow dots. Okay, and then I can go in with a pink or tristro and just put like leaves around them, petals. And then you get more of a flower kind of effect than just plain dots. So there are lots of different ways you could do this. Works with all sorts of different colors. Okay, so you can have that effect. Okay. Another example will be with the water brush, okay? So for this, again, I go in first with my pencils. The pencils cover up the tooth of the paper and also give you nice bushy effect. But as I said, you could do this with alcohol marker as well. It'll just be a smoother look, that's all. Okay. Right, and then my, this is the permanent green olive. Okay. Right, and then the pine green for my deepest shadows. It's a fun effect. It looks really good, and it's actually not that hard. Okay, and then blend out with the May green. You can even put the, as I showed earlier, you can even put your shadows where the artist hasn't given you shadows. You can create your own. You can put lots of layers to build up this color if you prefer. 1 layer, 2 layers. Okay, right. Okay, now another thing that you can do is work with a water brush and the Q-tip. Okay, so for this, let's first put down our dots where we want them. Okay. Let's say, for example, you've let it dry for a little bit longer than you wanted it to. You can, let's take the water brush and, oh, I have to squeeze some of this water out. Hold on 1 second. All right, so the water brush should be damp, not completely wet. And then you can just smush it around. And that will also give you a nice effect, okay? However, before you do anything with that, you need to wait for it to dry. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry, let's do one more. Okay. Let's do this one. Right? It must be completely dry before you put anything else, because if it's still wet and you try to do anything else, it's going to, you know, run. But acrylic does dry pretty quickly. Okay. Oh, let's put some here too. Anyway, this is a really nice way to embellish your pages. And an easy way to do those bushes that sometimes, you know, trying to figure out what you do with them. Okay. Right. Let's see. Is this dry? Hold on one second. A little bit longer. Okay, let's do this one. All right, so here, what do I want to do? Let's put in this. Hold on, let me cover. Starting to get paint on my hands. All right. Yeah, lots of different effects. And you can also build up layers of this as well, if you want it to be bushier. Okay, so that's like one layer. Let's do this one, a mid-tone. Okay. Right. And as you can see, you can mix and match the different types of marker. Okay, you can have the dots closer together, further apart. You get different looking areas if you do that. If you don't put flowers, then it's moss. If you do put flowers, then it's bushes or trees. If you do it in a tree, it's a tree. If you do it on a bush, it's a bush. You can also just put a layer of the acrylic marker down and then pencil on top. That's also a possibility. I think I'll show that technique too, but that's more for tree canopies. Okay, let's see, is this dry? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so now we're gonna put in more green. See, it's definitely dry, that's good. All right. And you get different effects with water, without water, with flowers, without flowers. I love this technique. It's also fun. You play with paint. Okay, I think I might do one more with a base layer of the marker instead of the pencil. I prefer it with the pencil. I think it gives it a better look, a better texture, but you can do it just with the markers as well. Let's do some flowers. The flowers should go in the darker areas so that they stick out. If you put them in the lighter areas, they don't appear as much. Okay, you can have different color flowers. Yeah. Okay, let's do one more. Let me add one more, and we'll just do it. Okay, that should be enough. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to do it with the marker completely. So I'm going to go down with a layer of yellow. So you just fill in the bush completely. Okay, keep in mind that this will be a lot more opaque than if you did it with the pencil first. Okay, let that give it a second to dry. Hold on, making sure it's dry. Okay, then you have your mid-tone. Okay. You can also smush it together if you like. Okay, and then I've got my other acrylic. Let's do this one. sometimes, as I was saying earlier, sometimes my pen gets a bit runny, and so I put it onto a palette first, and then you can lift it up from there and put it on. Then you'll get a much more muted look, a little bit more diluted than if you apply it directly to the page. Okay, so you can do that as well. See? Okay, and then some more in your shadow areas. And then you just get it just looks a little bit different, but it's just as good. You decide what's good for you. But it creates such a nice, full, fluffy looking bush or tree. And then, yeah, flowers. Just put some random dots. Okay, all right, and then you let it dry. Okay, so let's see what we have. Okay, I zoomed in a little bit so you could see the full effect. So on this one, we have pencil, and then either Tule Art or Artistro marker. These are the ones with the shake and prime, yes? And then with the Q-tip, yes? Okay. Then we have, trying to remember, I think the second one we did was this one. Okay, so this one is also pencil as a base layer. And then we have another layer of Artex or any brush marker. Yes, brush tip. And then we've got the Tule Art or Artistro. Plus Q-tip. Okay, and this one was a pencil base layer. Okay, then we did the Artex with a water brush. Make sure it's dry completely before you add anything. And then we had the Tule Art or Artistro for plus Q-tips. Okay, that was that one. This one was just like for moss. So this one was also pencil base layer. Then I think we had the Artex. Then we had the Tule Art plus Q-tip or Artistro. No flowers is moss. Okay, and the final technique was just with the acrylic markers. So we had base layer. This was an Artex base. Then it was Artex. Oops, sorry. Shading plus Q-tip. Okay, so yeah, those are our different methods for creating very fluffy, very beautiful bushes, moss, or tree canopies. Okay, you can take a picture of that if you like and keep it for your own records. Thank you everybody for joining me. I hope that you found this useful and helpful. And as I said earlier, you can use any markers, you can use any colors, and just enjoy. Thanks for joining me, and bye for now.